Welcome to the Quench Life podcast. My name's Jillian. Thank you for joining us today. We have Paula with us today. Thank you for coming in and hanging out and chatting about your story. Like I say, you always have such great stories to share. So I'm thankful that you came in today to chat with us. So why don't we start just kind of where you started your life fitness-wise, active-wise, and how that's kind of progressed for you.
Lots of different reasons that fitness is a really big part of my life today. Have always been active throughout high school, played several sports, downhill skier, volleyball, softball, have cycled for many, many years. Loved to do the last gasp and, the Pan Am Challenge, those types of things.
Yeah.
And in 2016, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. And that was undetected, so for probably 6 months to a year before that, I was having some debilitating physical issues and hadn't realized what it was undetected.
Sure.
Once it was diagnosed, I went through a solid 3 years of non-movement, joint pain.
Which maybe you could talk about a little bit, because I don't know if everybody really knows the level that Lyme's disease can really affect your life.
If it goes undetected, I don't want to scare people. If you get a bite and you notice that bite, you want to get to your doctor and get the antibiotic as soon as possible. I didn't know I was bit, and I didn't have any of the telltale signs, the circle rash or anything like that. So it had gone on for many months, to the point where there were a lot of neurological and a lot of physical things that were happening with my body. I thought I was going crazy, actually. And it wasn't that far of it wasn't that far of a stretch, but it was one of those things where I couldn't move like I used to.
Right.
And once I was diagnosed, I did have an enormous amount of antibiotic treatment, 3 treatments of antibiotics, trying to come back to at least somewhat of a semblance of a normal life.
Yeah.
And actually took a homeopathic method at the very end that was more herbal based, which seemed to actually work. It could have been the antibiotics finally kicking in,
right.
But I like to think that nature's way actually has some of that medicine as well. And when I realized that, I also realized that getting back to just having some balance. So it affected my balance. I wasn't walking correctly. I couldn't actually stand up from a chair.
Wow.
With unassisted, or the bathroom,
right.
Which was tough. If I was down on the ground, and I was falling, I was dragging my foot. I have some neurological damage on my left side, that's
right.
numbness. I had a really hard time actually getting myself up.
Right. Which is scary. That's a scary situation
Super
to be
scary.
part of.
And I turned 50-ish in that whole period of time, and had this revelation that if I could get well enough, that I really needed to jumpstart a fitness.
Sure.
And that's what kind of landed me at Quench. It was a roundabout way to get here.
Right.
But one of the things that I had noticed from just working out at like the Y or taking a walk is that I was really undirected.
Right.
There was no accountability. So, if I did feel like that, I'm not going to get up and kind of do what I'm supposed to do, I wasn't going to do it.
Sure.
So, fitness, as you said, how do you get here?
Right.
It's one of those things where, what do you do if you don't?
Right.
Right. So
Great question.
I have an 84-year-old mother who can't walk without a walker.
Right.
Right? I don't want to be that. If she falls, my dad can't pick her up. So, those are those things that, if you strength train and get your body in, especially those menopausal years, it's really, really important. Bone structure, I've been a follower of science for years and know that the more that you're fit, the better your longevity and how you actually get through your 60s and 70s and
right.
80s.
Yeah. And I think that that's such a crazy thing to reflect on, is watching your parents and saying, is that the lifestyle that, I want to end up being in, and finding a way to correct it. I think a lot of women kind of take that step back. We take a lot of responsibilities. We do have like people that care for their parents, and that allows you that opportunity of reflection. But also medical scares are, there's no quicker way to get back in shape than some sort of medical scare.
Right, and you know, I think that happens with a lot of people in their 50s.
Yeah.
Is that something happens. It could be breast cancer. It could be any of those challenges that we have out there. You know, high blood pressure, stress. I mean, all of that is a component of, you know, really thinking to yourself, you know, do I want to do this for the next 20 years?
Right.
Or do I want to make that change now and make it part of a lifestyle? And I think that's important for people to understand, is that it's not exercise, it's a lifestyle. I made the commitment 3 days a week. Some challenge coming up on the 18th says 5 days a week.
We're starting a 45-day challenge, and all the girls are like, 5 days a week. So you're not the only one. Some sort of movement, 5 days a week.
Some sort of movement, 5 days a week. But I've made the commitment, and in my job, you know, my hours vary. So I carry a lot of equipment, but you know, making that commitment to say, you know, 3 days a week, I'm going to be training. I'll either strength train, box, or boot camp. Sometimes I strung them all together. That's not always fun.
Yeah.
I had to take a nap before I got here today because it was my third straight day. But it was the only way that I could fit it in this week.
Right.
You know, it was one of those weeks that I just, you know, my normal Monday, Wednesday, Saturday schedule didn't work.
Right.
Good thing that there was enough classes that I could pick and choose to, you know, get those workouts in.
Yeah. So how do you go about scheduling the time for yourself? You know, as far as making the time for you, like how do you kind of do that in your brain? Do you have a system for that, or is it just like you shut it off and then you go, or how does that work for you?
So we all say we have ADD, but I actually do.
Okay.
And have utilized a calendar system since I was in elementary school.
Right.
So
like an
you know,
old school calendar, right?
I was the Franklin Covey kid with the day planner in middle school, right? Because I couldn't remember to get things done at a certain time.
Right.
So what I do is I base the rest of my calendar work-wise on how I'm putting my fitness. So my fitness comes first on the calendar.
Okay,
right?
cool.
So on Saturday, when Jillian puts that notice out that the new schedule's up, I go out and I look and I say, okay, I can do this, this, and this, and then I look at my calendar and say those days work.
Sure.
So they go on my work calendar. They don't go on some arbitrary, you know, family calendar or something like that I might ignore.
Right.
Right? It goes on the work calendar.
Yeah.
So I'm working around those times.
And so those times are sacred spaces that we're just not going to trade out, which I think is big, is that, you know, that time, making that time commitment, that you're not going to change it out or, you know, exchange it for something else, that you're going to give that time to yourself. It's important.
And I've noticed too that, you know, the times of day have worked a little bit differently, where, you know, the premise that exercise should happen in the morning is like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I walk my dogs in the morning, and you know, there's 3 miles that I get in a day anyways with the dogs. But I've noticed that doing exercise at the end of the day actually helps me sleep better.
Yeah.
It helps me kind of focus on what I eat for dinner as well, and I don't want to ruin the workout by like eating crap on the couch at 8 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of that whole scheduling thing, is that I know my body and I know what is good for me.
Right.
Some people may like that early morning, gets them going for the day, makes them stay on track for the day, where it's kind of a little bit opposite for me. You know, it ends my day.
Yeah. And I think it's, you know, what works for you, and I think that that's an important word in that. Like, I tell people all the time, if you're not up at 5 a.m. having a cup of coffee, just enjoying that 5 a.m. time, you're not going to get up at 5 a.m. to come for a workout. So let's do it in the afternoon.
Right.
I'm not a morning girl. I'm not going to work out in the morning, but I like a good afternoon workout because I feel like it washes away the stress of the day. You can kind of leave it all on the gym floor and then can go home and feel good, feel energized. And I agree
Right.
too. Get the dinner thing going so that you don't.
Right.
You just feel better when you sweat and you
Yep.
feel good. You want to eat well. You want to eat healthy. So I think those are all great.
And it kind of keeps you in that schedule too, where, in the summertime especially, you tend to eat later and later and later.
Yeah.
And then once you've eaten that heavier meal at, say, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and all of a sudden, I'm tired, I'm going to go to bed. Whereas when you're working out, you're hungry.
Yeah.
So by the time you get home, you're right kind of into the mode of getting dinner and, getting that done. So
Always hungry, so I totally get that. Like, what are we eating?
Right.
And while I'm eating this meal, I'd like to have a discussion about what we're
Our
eating next
next
time,
meal.
because that's how I get through my day. Is what is the next
what's
meal?
for dinner, right? What's for lunch?
Yeah, that's my husband can attest that that's how
Mine
we
as
jam
well.
at our house.
Yeah, that's funny.
So you also have, I think, a really cool job too. I love all of Paula's stories. Every time she comes into the gym, we're like, Paula, what's going on in the Cape? What are we doing? What's the goss? What's happening? So tell us about that, as I just think it's cool.
Well, I am a TV star. No.
Yes, she
Who
is.
knew, right?
We did. We knew.
I actually am the assistant station manager for the town of Barnstable's Channel 18.
Yes.
So my job is varied. I'm a host in some cases, so being on the other side of the camera is
Okay.
actually kind of neat. But my job primarily is to inform, educate, and help residents and visitors understand what the town's doing, how they can get involved, what programs and services are available to them, what things are changing. Those types of informational pieces are put together in video segments, or they're podcasts. We're going to start our own podcast hopefully in the next 6 months or so. I run a camera on occasion. Actually, I prefer to be behind the camera, but
Yeah.
my job was hired to be in front of the camera.
Is that how you got started? Was with behind the camera?
That's a whole nother story, but
Okay.
the synopsis is that I have a degree in photojournalism.
Okay.
And never used it. And after 3 careers, my 4th career, I'm actually using it.
Okay.
So
Just takes time to get there sometimes.
just, my mom, when I told her when I took this position 2 years ago, or I actually had one position before this that was very similar, she says, well, you're using that degree. And I'm like, yes, I am.
Finally.
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 But I think a big part of my job, serving the town, I'm a municipal civil servant, hopefully, giving people the information that they need so their quality of life here in the town of Barnstable is, what they want it to be. There's so much information, there's so many different things that go around in a town. Public access and educational access and government access TV is critical to our communities.
Sure.
We're living in a news desert.
Yeah.
There's so many papers that are, I just heard another one just went down to a couple of days a week. That was the Berkshire Eagle. It's been around for years. Now they're only going to publish 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Cape Cod Times has a skeleton crew. A lot of our weekly papers have, are all a conglomerate. So where do
Right.
people go and get the information that they need from the town?
Sure.
So that's my job in a nutshell. I look for stories.
Yeah.
Love to tell stories. So
Yes.
that's the good part of it.
Yeah.
But there's also hard things too.
Yeah.
We have to communicate. The COVID crisis was really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
For municipal government to actually manage.
Yeah.
And the information was so fast and so furious and constantly changing.
Right.
So we're hoping that we're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
We always want to have people feedback and say, what do you want to learn?
Sure.
We're more than happy to go out and chase a story or chase some kind of service that you might get from the town.
Right.
To explain it a little bit better for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that there, with anything, just like fitness, there's just so much information out there. So having a real consistent source that's communicating clear information that's correct is super helpful, especially in this COVID time where everything's so crazy, for sure.
It was, and you know, a lot of employees of the town did some pivots. You know, when this all happened, we literally had to make sure that you know, there was a website dedicated to just the health crisis of COVID.
Sure.
We also had, you know, some other types of information out there that really, you know, was specific to COVID for social media and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, as the day goes on and things are different, we still have that mandate. We still need to record every meeting that happens at the town.
Yep.
And, you know, being at Quench helps me carry 40 pounds of gear when that has to happen.
Who would have thought that you'd have to carry 40 pounds of gear into a town meeting? I mean, geez.
Well, the folks that are recording us know how much it weighs.
For sure.
You know, between lights and microphones and cameras and, you know, audio gear, there's just, and that was another big piece for me, is that, you know, when I was working, I knew that I was out of shape.
Yeah.
You know, not being able to, you know, carry that gear confidently was a challenge for me. And, you know, now, no challenge.
No challenge. You whip it around, no problem. And I think that that is an important, you know, thing that you do come, is that when your life becomes an everyday challenge, that you do need to make different decisions. So my last question for you is, what is your favorite exercise now, being at the gym and loving everything that you're doing? Is there one exercise that when we go through a workout that you're like, oh, thank gosh, I'm so glad that that's in today's workout? Do you got one?
You know, I think probably deadlifts would probably be the exercise, with the big bars and being able to challenge myself for weight. You were here that day that I lifted 155 pounds.
Yes.
So that was like super cool.
Personal record.
But I have to tell you, having Jesse in boxing has just literally changed. That 30 minutes is the best 30 minutes I've spent in the gym. The last two boxing trainings that I had with him were unbelievable. We literally threw our arms for 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's awesome. You know, I had lots of yellows and reds in my heart zone, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
oh, good.
Yeah, a little bit of strength training, but you know, that cardio.
Gotta love the deadlifts, but on a good stressful day,
and
nice to hit that.
You can leave the spin bike wherever you want.
Yes.
I'm good.
No spin bikes for Paula. We got that memo.
I like to cycle, but cycling in place just seems, I don't know, redundant.
Yeah. Everything has its place, and either you like it or you don't. And if you don't like it, you just don't do it.
Exactly.
It's that simple. Well, thank you for joining us today on the Quench Life podcast. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.